The first time I heard her voice, it was carried on the wind, low, steady, and edged with a strength that made me stop mid-step. I had learned long ago that the desert doesn't speak unless it has something important to say. That day, standing under a sky stretched wide and mercilessly blue, I had no idea that a single act of kindness would unravel my lonely life and weave it back together in ways I never imagined. I had come west after the war with nothing but a mule, a rifle I barely touched anymore, and a heart that felt hollowed out. Towns passed me by like brief, dusty dreams. People saw a tall man with tired eyes and assumed I preferred solitude. The truth was simpler and sadder. I didn't know how to belong anymore. So I worked odd jobs, fixed fences, dug wells, and moved on before anyone could ask questions I didn't know how to answer. It was near the edge of the Canyonlands when I found her. The Apache woman lay beside an overturned wagon, her leg pinned awkwardly beneath a broken wheel. Blood darkened the sand near her ankle, but her face held no fear, only resolve. I hesitated. Stories about Apaches had followed me since childhood. Stories thick with fear and misunderstanding. But pain is a language all humans understand, and hers was undeniable. I cut the mule loose, knelt beside her, and worked carefully, speaking softly even though I didn't know if she understood English. She watched my hands, sharp-eyed, never once flinching. When the wheel came free and she was able to sit up, she studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded, a simple gesture heavy with meaning. Her name was Nalan. She insisted I come back to her camp so her leg could be properly treated. Every instinct I had told me to refuse, to keep moving, to avoid entanglements. But something in her calm authority made refusal feel wrong. So I followed. The camp was modest, tucked into the curve of redstone and sagebrush. Children paused their play to stare. Elders watched silently. I felt every step like a test. Yet no one raised a weapon. No one spoke harshly. When they treated Nalan's leg, they allowed me to stay. They even fed me. Days turned into weeks as I repaired wagons, fetched water, and helped where I could. I expected suspicion. Instead, I found quiet acceptance. They didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer. In that shared silence, something inside me began to heal. One evening, as the fire crackled low, Nalan sat beside me. The stars were bright enough to feel close. "You walk alone," she said. "I always have," I replied. She studied the flames. "Sometimes walking alone is not strength. Sometimes it is only habit." Her words stayed with me. I realized how much of my life had been shaped by loss, a family buried back east, friends lost to war, dreams abandoned because they hurt too much to hold. I had convinced myself solitude was safer, but safety had become another kind of prison. A few days later, I overheard a trader in town mention me offhandedly. "That drifter, I heard he's looking for a wife." I laughed it off. I wasn't looking for anything, or so I thought. When I returned to camp, Nalan was waiting. She motioned for me to sit. Her face was serious, but her eyes were warm. "I heard you want a wife," she said evenly. "My daughter is perfect for you." The words hit me like a sudden gust of wind. I nearly choked on my breath. "I don't." She raised a hand. "Listen first." Her daughter, Anna, stepped forward. I had seen her before. Quiet, observant, carrying water with a grace that seemed effortless. Up close, I noticed her eyes held both gentleness and steel. She met my gaze without hesitation. "She has known hardship," Nalan continued. "She has known loss. She is strong, and she is kind. You helped me when you could have walked away. That tells me who you are." I wanted to protest, to explain that I was broken, rootless, unworthy of such trust. But Anna spoke before I could. "My mother does not offer lightly," she said. "Nor do I accept without choice. I choose this." The unexpected turn of my life stood right there, waiting. Fear surged up, a fear of failing, of losing again, of daring to belong. But beneath it was something stronger, hope. We didn't rush. We talked. We worked side by side. I learned her laughter came easily, her silence held depth, and her kindness was deliberate. She taught me her language, I taught her mine. Slowly, Two solitary paths began to merge. Not everyone approved. A few men from town muttered warnings. A few elders watched closely. But kindness has a way of softening even the hardest skepticism. When sickness came through the camp, I stayed up nights tending fires and fetching water. When a storm tore through the valley, we rebuilt together. Trust grew not from words, but from presence. The emotional climax came the night a group of raiders threatened the camp. Old fears roared back to life. I stood with the others, heart pounding, ready to defend not out of duty, but love. When the danger passed without bloodshed, I realized something profound. This was my home now. Under the open sky, with the desert breathing quietly around us, Nalan approached me once more. She placed her hand over mine. "You came as a stranger," she said. "You stayed as family." Anna smiled at me, and in that moment, the emptiness I had carried for years finally loosened its grip. Our union wasn't marked by grandeur, but by meaning. A shared meal, shared vows, shared future. I learned that humanity isn't defined by where you're from, but by how you treat those you meet along the way. I once believed kindness was a small thing, a brief light in a harsh world. Now I know it can change the course of a life. Mine did on a day when I stopped walking alone and chose to listen to the wind.